Hello everyone, welcome back to Witches the Moon with your Friday hostess Natalie. This week's topic is using tarot in magic. Now this honestly is not something I do very often, but I would like to talk about some various ways in which I have utilized tarot and its imagery in my magic. I do tarot readings. I am a card reader and I read empathically, which means, or intuitively, which means that I don't necessarily follow the book meanings of the cards. Like I won't sit there and draw a set of cards and then go and look at the book and say, okay, this is what this card means, or that's what that card means, and go with that. I also do not typically read reversals. The only time I read a reversal as a different meaning of a card is when I'm doing what's called a major minor arcana reading, which is a method I developed, which I place a major arcana card next to a minor arcana card in the various positions that I'm reading for, past, present, future, that sort of thing. And in which case I do consider the reversals of the cards as having meanings, and I also look at the relationships between the major and minor cards because I believe that that can shade the meaning of the major arcana card. So I will look at that to see what it is. Like, for example, if I draw the Fool and it's reversed and the person also gets a Five of Pentacles next to that card, that would indicate to me that perhaps this person is engaging in some foolhardy matters with their money. Either they're engaging in a business deal that they think sounds good, but it's really not that good. They're at a risk for losing money through some sort of naivety or kind of foolish action, that sort of thing. So that's the type of thing that I'm talking about. However, in the use of magic itself, there are many ways in which you can utilize tarot. I've seen it used in other people's magic spells quite a lot. Some people will take some of the cards, and for example, this is the Princess Tarot. This one was gifted to me. It's upside down, sorry. This is the Fool, Lady Godiva. This deck is a Lascarbo deck, and it was gifted to me by someone a while back, and it was a deck that I just didn't connect to for readings right away. I just pulled it out of where I had it some time ago. I kind of like this one here, the Empress. Some time ago, because I pulled it out last night, was kind of going back through it, and I feel a little bit better about the deck now, so I may take some time to try to get to know this deck a little more, but it was my idea that I could use this deck in magic. Now, I like the images on tarot very much. I love tarot decks. I love reading cards. This is, my daughter got me this little Tree of Life box to keep my cards in. This is my primary deck. It's the Dreamers Vision deck. This one here. This is the book that came with it. This gives the meanings, but it's by Barbara Moore. And I really like this deck. This was gifted to me by Amy Webster. Many of you know her because she was a host on this channel for a little while. And she's very much into tarot. But I love the imagery on this deck. And actually you can't see it very well on the lighting here. But there is some just beautiful pastel coloring right in here. That's just, the artwork is stunning on these. And what I like to do with these is you can actually take the cards and utilize them as part of your spell. The problem with doing that is you're going to end up having bits and pieces of decks, because what you're going to end up doing is disposing of the card when you dispose of your spell remnants. Another way that I've seen people utilize tarot in spell work is to use the card for its energetic purposes only. So for example, if you were calling on some sort of, you're wanting some sort of spiritual guidance in a specific working, you're calling on spirit to pull you, you might use the Magician as a card that you could place as a center point to your working on your altar. So you would put it like on your pentacle disc or in the center of your thing or in front of your cauldron or in your cauldron. And you would do your spell working, and during that time you would be focusing on the card and using it as an image to pull down. So like, for example, if you're working on a card where you're trying to working on a spell where you're trying to affect some sort of change in your life, or it's a transformation spell and you're wanting to manifest that, you could utilize the Death card, and that could be your point of focus for your spell work. So you could even set it up somewhere you know, where it could become a focal point for you. So you're focusing on the death card and you're thinking about the meaning of that card and how it represents change and new beginnings and that sort of thing. And you could really focus on that. If you're trying to put an end to a bad relationship or something like that, or you know, to something, you could also utilize it for that. Now, another way, and my more popular method that I like, the way I utilize tarot in my spell workings, is I will sometimes select a card that to me represents the person on whom I am focusing. I've heard people doing that in readings where they'll place a card out in the middle, and I've heard it referred to as the Seeker's card, the Querent card, the Significator card, various different labels to that. But I will sometimes utilize a card to represent somebody if I'm doing a working for someone else specifically. Because a lot of my spell work is done for me, by me, or, you know, for people that are in my immediate family and immediately in my life. But when I'm approached to do spell work for someone else, I need something that kind of represents that person. And as many of you know, some of the tarot cards have connections to different astrological signs. So I may ask the person their date of birth so that I can utilize a card that would represent that person and help me visualize that person more as I'm doing my working. So I will do that sometimes, especially like in love spells. I will take the two cards that represent the two houses, two astrological signs that the people are, that represent the people, if that makes sense. I'm babbling today. It's just not coming together today. Sorry, folks. So I will do that. I will, you know, select, especially if it's a love spell, I'll pick a card that matches the astrological signs for the two people involved. And that helps me to kind of draw that working in. And where I was going with what I do with it, I use it that way. But another way that I utilize tarot is I'll use the images. So, for example, if I am wanting to, I love this card. And like I said, I don't necessarily always go by the meanings that are in the book. I go with what I see in the cards and what I feel, what intuitively comes to my mind when I see a card. This card here, the Knight of Swords, I love this card. I don't know if you can see his face. He's got such a fierce look to his face, and I love it. So I might take this card, and then I would utilize the same method that I discussed when I talked about candle dressing, ways to dress a candle. I will take this card and I will copy it, and I'll flip the image on the printer, and, you know, like I'll scan it into the computer, if that makes sense. And then I'll go under a program for photos, and I will flip the picture. I'll make it a reverse picture so that it prints it like mirror. And then I will copy the, sometimes I have to flip it, sometimes I don't. I'm trying to think of how it works out when I do this, because I haven't done this method in a while with the tarot cards. But basically what it is the same method of taking the tissue paper and putting it on the printer paper and printing off an image. I'll do the same thing with the images from the cards, and I will utilize that to dress the candles, so that I'm drawing the energies of the tarot card onto the candle, because I'm not an artiste, and if I tried to draw this onto a candle, it would never work. So I may draw also some sort of image to represent the card in a sigil. So for example, on the Knight of Swords, I might draw a sword with a knight's helmet from his armor at the top of it to represent the Knight of Swords, to further draw that energy in, and I will incorporate that image into a sigil, which is another way in which I incorporate tarot. I guess I use it more than I thought, into my magic. So anything that I can do to make my sigils more effective, I will do that, and tarot is one more method of doing that. So, but essentially what I'll do is I will put the card down and I'll print it onto the tissue paper, and I'll adhere the tissue paper to the candle to utilize it as such. Or I may copy the card if I don't want to utilize the card itself, but I still want the image and the energy of the card, but I don't want to get rid of my card. I will copy it and utilize that into the magic itself, so that when I dispose of the spell remnants, I'm not losing my cards. Because I'm not like Sunshine Morning Ray. I don't have 5 million tarot decks and other sets of cards. that like she does. I have 3 sets of tarot cards. The Princess Tarot, which is the one that I showed you. I have the Halloween Tarot, which Sunshine gave me for my birthday because I really wanted it. And then I have the Dreamer's Tarot, Dreamer's Vision Tarot, that I dearly, dearly love. This is my favorite deck. So when I utilize the images, because I do like the images, like I said, it's usually in some other method so that I don't have to dispose of the card. There are so many different ways that you could utilize tarot in your magic. You could call upon the energies of the various different cards. You can call to mind the cards. You can do a reading in the course of doing your spell work. So there are a lot of different ways, and I'm sure that by the time you got to me this week, you've heard just about everything you can do with it. But I hope that I've at least given you a little something different to think about. Like I said, my favorite method is to take the card and to copy it on the tissue paper and then utilize the tissue paper. And I may actually make a video later where I show how to adhere the tissue paper, because I've had a lot of people ask me, how do I get the tissue paper without it ruining my printer? It's not as hard as you think. If I can manage it, I might try to show you right now. What you're going to do is you're going to take just a piece of your printer paper, and you want to get plain little white tissue, or you can use colored tissue paper actually to correspond excuse me, to correspond to the candle that you're using or to the spell. So if you wanted red tissue paper, you could do it on red tissue paper. Just keep in mind how that's going to affect the coloring of the image itself. But what you do is you take a piece of the tissue paper and you're going to lay your printer paper over it, and then what you're going to do is you're going to cut off at an angle, not through the paper itself, but just to the edge of the paper. You're going to cut at an angle, and then you're going to fold the paper over. See if I can do this here. So essentially what you're going to do is you're going to take this, and you're going to place this face down on a flat surface, and then you'll take the scissors, and you'll basically just snip away the corner of the tissue paper. And you're going to do that on all 4 sides. And then what you're going to do is you're going to fold the paper over, tape it, fold the paper over, and tape it so that it's flat. Okay? That way the tissue paper is completely covered. And you want to tape all the way around, I mean the whole length of the edge of the tissue paper. And so what happens is you come out with a piece of like tissue over tissue, tissue over the paper where it's flat and it's actually evened up. And that way it doesn't get caught up in your printer and ruin your printer. But it's actually not so hard. You just snip at an angle, and that way when you fold it down, it doesn't matter. And if a little bit of the paper is sticking out from the tissue paper, that's okay. It's not a problem, because the image is going to be as centered on the paper as you can get it. And then you're just going to cut the image out. You're going to throw away the paper or put it in the recycle bin like I do, and then just you'll adhere that tissue paper the same way that I mentioned in the previous video, where you would use some wax. Yes, you would place the tissue paper over the candle, place a piece of wax paper over the top of the tissue paper, and then use a blow dryer on low heat to adhere the image to your candle. And that way you're getting the image of the tarot, and you're getting all those energies infused into your candle. It's just another method of dressing, but it's one way in which I incorporate that. And I didn't mention that when I talked about candle dressing. I just talked about you could put sigils or whatever on there. Same thing. And like I said, I will sometimes use images from the cards and incorporate them in my own way into a sigil. So that helps to lend a little bit more to the magic. So if you have any other questions, please leave a comment in the comment box. Any other suggestions, anything that you do that maybe we haven't mentioned this week. I would love to see your comments and see how you guys incorporate tarot into your own magic, if that's something that you do. If it's not something you've ever thought about, well, give it a shot, see what it does for you. And I find that it helps to focus the energies just a little bit more and increase the visualization. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope that y'all have a blessed week.